Hi everyone, I'm Martin and welcome to Astronomy for Beginners. Today's guide is I'm going to show you how the Synscan handset works. Now for people that own go-to telescopes and all that, the Synscan handset can be a bit confusing to use and the manual doesn't really show very well to beginners. As I mentioned before, with certain of the dry runs. Now dry runs or practice, get in the habit of doing this. If you're unsure of something, do a dry run. Basically, even if you have to set up the telescope, right, during the day, set it up as you would, like on the other guide, like as I mentioned before about setting up the telescope, getting it pole aligned and so forth. Once you do all that, get into the habit, it all becomes a sequence, so it becomes easy. So I've got my Lunt Engineering ED refractor on my EQ5 mount, which now my mount is now fully tuned up. This telescope is now set up. Basically, all I gotta do is plug on the handset and the power, and off one go. That is it. And then I'll show you the guide through as a step by step. So we'll go over here and we'll show you the Synscan handset. Right, we got the Synscan handset, and the first thing you need to do is basically switch on. Once your battery lead is connected up to the mount, basically you switch on the switch, and what happens then, the handset starts initializing. Once the beep's gone, we're onto this screen. Now this is the Synscan firmware and what it is the firmware is an update of the latest driver. At the moment it's on 3.32, which it was the latest driver, but I believe they brought in the latest firmware for it now. But ideally, when you do start to use the mount and the telescope, it is always a good idea to go online, go to Skywatcher on the net, go to the official website and update the latest firmware. Now in the manual it should show you how to do that. Alright, because usually you have a serial lead that you connect the handset and you can update it from there. First thing you want to do is you press enter to get out of that, and this screen tells you a warning sign of do not look at the sun with the telescope and all that. Right, the next screen tells us the location you're at. Now when you first boot it up, you're not going to have this reading on there. Alright, it's not going to find the exact reading. So to get your location, it's an ideal opportunity is whatever site you're at, a dark site or your garden for example, is the tip is either you can use your Android or iPad or whatever you got, get an app that you can use which should show you like a location you're at, and you can use the device to find out your actual northings and eastings, and then you'll be able to type in the coordinates. Now you can use Google Maps for example online, which also tells you where you are, and it is a good idea before you start setting up or using the telescope or set up and all during the night sky, is during the day at some point, whatever location you pick or dark side, is to go over there during the day and get the actual location you're at, so that once you've got your coordinates, you'll be able to type it in there, no problems. Alternatively, if you're like me, I don't like any of the hassle. I personally I don't like that kind of stuff. So what I do is you can actually buy a GPS module for it, and here is the the GPS for it. And basically what that happens is, if I lift this handset here, alright, the GPS basically goes into this slot here, alright, and clips in there. And what that does is, once you get, what you do is you switch off the handset and then connect the GPS, and as it's loading up, it will, first thing it will do, it will boot up, initialize. Once you've gone through there, it will then find a satellite. Now the GPS will track a satellite and will find the a nearest satellite near the sky or something nearabouts. Once it's locked on there, it'll take about probably about 5, maybe 6 minutes or so. And once it's got track of the satellite, it will then update exactly where you are on Earth, and it will update the location, the time, and the date, and automatically. Really handy device. However, it is expensive. I mean, £100 for this, believe it or not, for a little GPS module, which I think is a bit expensive, but it is handy to have. But you can get round it. You don't really need one of these, but if you do a lot of travelling, then this does actually become really handy in the long run. And if you go to different various remote dark sites, then yeah, brilliant, it updates itself, no problems. However, you don't have to have one of these, right? And I'm not going to plug this in, because that will be cheating basically. Obviously I want to show and demonstrate to you guys that, you know, the proper way of setting up. Alright, so just imagine, I mean, it's easy to set up. I mean, you press a few keys on the coordinates. Once you've got your data, you then, once you've typed in the date, the number, you just press the arrow keys left and right to go to the next digit, and so forth. Keep doing that. Once you've got your, you know, and you can either key in the numbers, or you can scroll up and down to get your date that way. And once you've got your setup, you just press enter. Right, this is what confuses a lot of people, and believe it or not, it is quite easy. Now, the time zone is basically where you are on Earth, what sort of time zone you're at. Now for this, where I live is basically, I'm an hour ahead, but in UK it would be 00, and it's easy to adjust. You know, you can press these down keys. It gives you the plus and minus, right? But that'll be a minus anyway. But to get your date, you just flick through there, right? And you just type in if you're an hour ahead or whatever, or you know what I mean. But I'm +1, okay? So I'm an hour ahead from the UK. Once you've got that, you just press enter. Right. Then we set on the date. Now, obviously in the UK for us, we obviously are used to the day, the month, and the year. But this actually threw me off balance, because it's Synscan. Basically, they've set their date and time and all that. They've done it American style. So basically, as you're typing in your numbers, it's always the month first, then the day, and then the year. Alright, so if you set that wrong, it's not going to work, or not even boot up. So obviously, and it does throw a lot of people off balance, and it has with me when I first used the Synscan. But assuming it's on that the date's set up, right, and I'm happy with that, so I click onto that. Then it asks you for the time, alright, and you set the time what you want, alright, up and down with the keys and all that. And once you set your time, you just then press enter. Right, then we go to the next screen. Now, daylight savings. This is basically if it's like summer, a good example, daylight savings will be yes. Alright, so I obviously, the date when it's changing now, I always select yes. For winter, you just press no. Right, Polaris, basically that tells you the position of Polaris, Now depending on which firmware, you might not even get that to that screen, but basically it tells you the time where Polaris is in transit, sort of thing. Alright, and it tells you the position where it's at. Alright, you just select through that. Right, next minute you get begin alignment, and obviously to begin with you press yes. You get series of alignment. Alright, if I use my arrow key from the bottom, right, you get a 1 star, 3 star or a 2 star alignment. Now it doesn't really matter what sort of alignment you use, but 1 star alignment is basically it aligns 1 star, 1 bright star in the sky, and remaps it, which is okay for beginners, right, and it works alright for visual, but it's not accurate. And then you got 3 star alignment, which basically it aligns 3 stars in the sky, 2 bright ones, a particular star in a certain point in the sky, and that's used for a much more accurate alignment, but to eliminate the cone error of the telescope, which is basically the cone error is if the telescope on the dovetail, if the telescope has got a slight bit of up and down and it's not quite straight. Now I don't want to go too much in depth in that, but I never really bother with that, because I always find that particularly when you find 2 bright stars and you're trying to find the 3rd star. Now the 1st star is usually a very confusing sort of star to find in the night sky, but I found that it's not really that useful. So I use, believe it or not, the 2 star method, which is basically the 2 bright stars, and that's all you need. And believe it or not, I use the 2 star method for astrophotography, and it works extremely well. And I always use the 2 star alignment, always. And also I'm happy with it. Basically you choose like your 1st star. Now all your alignment stars are usually the stars which are some of the brightest stars in the skies. Now the reason why I say that is, as a beginner you could be looking for ever and ever looking for stars. Now all these alignment stars you get are all bright stars, so all your stars you need to look for is bright stars. Now you can do several things, right? You can use a planisphere to find your stars you want to choose, alright? You can always go from what the default is, right? The default menu, but I always prefer to select my own stars, so that if you can find a certain constellation that you can recognize and you can know where the star patterns are, alright, it works brilliantly, and you can select your own stars. Alright, what you could do is just flick through all the stars, alright, and you'll go and search. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them, alright, and some of them I don't even know myself, but there's quite a few stars in the sky, alright, and you can go through a lot, alright, but pick the star that you're comfortable and you can find. There's a little handy tip what I found, and I found it in believe it or not, in the Skywatcher website, and you can download a PDF file which is the star alignment maps, and basically it'll tell you where all the main bright stars are, and I'll show you it now. And these are them here, and basically it'll tell you where all the bright stars and all that are in the sky, and all your alignment stars, and it tells you all the various names and all that. And you can get this from the Skywatcher website of star alignment stars. It should be in customer support menu, and that's where you can download these PDF files. Very handy to have, and it's free as well. You can use Stellarium, alright, to find your stars, and but one thing I found out with Stellarium, is you've got to click on the star to find the name. Ideally here, this shows you a variety of stars already shown up. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press enter, because I know series, and it's moving in position, and what it'll do is it'll pick out the first star. Okay, so it's slowing ahead. Right, what it does now is the handset now tells you to use the directional keys to center the object. As I described on my last guide, I mentioned about using you use your widest possible eyepiece. Now, for most of us, what you do is to get all your star alignment, you go to your red dot finder, and as you'll see now, see your red dot now. Right, so alright, you've got your red dot finder, it's a bit bright, but what you do is you line up the star through your red dot finder or finder scope, and whilst you're doing that, you are basically readjusting. Right, so you're readjusting the directions and get it into the field of view. And then, as I mentioned before, you then line up the telescope into the main tube, look through the telescope, and do the alignment there as well. So if you got it on your finder, look through the telescope and then readjust. Now, one thing I found out that the speed might not be as great. So it might be a bit too fast for you. So to change the speed and all that, you just press this button called rate, right? And it says set speed plus or minus, and you just basically press the key 1 to 9. Alright, 9's the fastest, 1's the slowest, and you set the speed you want to go to align it. Alright, so it is quite easy. So I've set mine to a usually good one I like doing it is 3 or 4, and once it's set, it will set and it will go back to the directional keypad, and then you just line up your star there and so forth. Another tip is, as I mentioned before, is use your wide field eyepiece. But if you've got a reticle eyepiece, this way it comes handy again. Alright, and you can line up the star much more accurate if you've got a reticle eyepiece. Once that's lined up in the reticle, alright, you then you press enter, okay, and then it'll select a second star. So we go to another star, which is another star in Taurus, and you press again. Then the telescope will then move into position to the second star. So it's still moving in. So it's locked onto that star, and then same again. You look through the red dot finder or your finder scope. You line up the star with the reticle, and then moving these directionals. All right, and then you look through the eyepiece and then self-center it to the main scope. And then once you're happy and it's in bang on center, you just press that, and then it should say alignment successful. Basically now the telescope is now tracking, believe it or not. Now this screen, depending on your firmware, is a screen that tells you how far your polar scope alignment is. This basically tells you the elevation and the altos positions of how far out your polar alignment. Now at the moment it's like 00 degrees, 0 and minutes, and then seconds. Now that is really accurate. Now I'm slightly out by 33 seconds on the LTAS, but as I mentioned before in my last guide, the closer you can get to your reticle adjustment on the polar scope of the reticle, the better that is, and that just shows you how accurate, if you do the adjustments, you can get. Now that's pretty good, alright, believe it or not, and I can get 5 and 10 minute exposure with that even though I'm slightly out. However, because of the firmware, and because there's a new firmware now, this firmware had issues on the polar alignment, so it's not quite as accurate as it is. So that now I just ignore it. I ignore it completely. As long as if my polar scope is fully aligned to the North Star as much as I can, and the reticle is fully adjusted, you shouldn't get, it should be fine. But for astrophotography, it has to be really spot on. But because of the firmware, there's a slight fault on it, and no matter how much you adjust it, you're going to be out by miles or so. But that's a really good readout, and it's accurate enough. But most of the work, what I use is auto guiding, which I use a second scope, which I attach it to the refractor, and the second scope has a guide camera, and basically that will control the mounts and check for the stars that have moved out of position. But I'm not going to go into that further detail. But as long as your polar alignment is accurate as you can, escape from that. Okay, keep pressing escape till you get to a setup menu, and then you scroll down from these buttons here. Alright, and then you can start going through. The object list is basically, if you flick through there and you got your object list, and that gives you you can either look at stars, you can either do a deep sky tour, which basically Synscan will give you a guided tour of the night sky, of the best objects in the night sky. Alright, and you can either define your user objects, but I'm not going to go into that one in too much detail. Then you've got variable stars, double stars, SO catalog, Cadwell catalog, Messier objects, IC objects, NGC objects, solar system, which is the planets and the moon. There's quite a lot, but you take your pick, whatever object you want to see. Alright, and for most beginners, usually want to start on planets or the Messier objects. For me, I like my deep sky objects on the Messier. And say like I want to view a particular object, right? I'll click on enter, and then it'll ask me what Messier. So I basically type in the key. Now for Messier objects, I mean, if you don't know the objects, you can use Stellarium or a star map or an app to find out where you want what Messier you want to view, and you can get the number and all that. But for me, because we're Messier 1 for example, we start off easy, and once you're happy or you want to view that particular object, you just press enter. It will then give you coordinates of what it is in the sky, where it is in constellation, the size of the object. It tells you a whole series of information, alright, and magnitude, how faint it is. Quite easy to find, and all you do is once you're happy, you just press enter, and it says, do you want to view the object? And you press enter, and then the telescope will then move into position and finds the object for you, and then the computer will track the object, and you can look for the eyepiece and enjoy your views. If your object appears to be not central, it means that your alignment is slightly out. Now there is a way you can do this, and you have to Insync the drive and correct the drive, the go-to function. And basically what you do is this: you hold down the escape key. Now on some models it says you have to put down, you have to press for about 2 seconds, but here you have to press again, then you get center object. Once you get the center object, you then recenter it into the field of view. Once it's in center and you're happy with it, you then press enter, and that will resync the go-to drive. Then, to check see if you're accurate, there's another key you can do, and you just press the ID key at the bottom, and you hold that in there, and it will identify the object. So, okay, and as it shows here, M1 off 0.00 degrees. So basically, I'm interview spot on. If you're slightly out, you can do the process again and readjust, and then you'll be spot on. And that's how to resync the go-to drive. Once you finish and park the telescope, and basically it's a proper sort of shutdowns procedure. Now, I don't like switching it off through the mains and all that, because I think, you know, it might damage the electronics in there. So what I do is I tend to prefer to park it up, and to do that is you press escape, and then you go to object list, and you scroll down. Utility function. It shows you a variety of information in there, but basically that's what I like to use as park scope. And what that does is, you want to park to home position. Like I mentioned on my guide before, the home position is basically all set where those markers what I set, alright, that I've wrote on the mount, the little marks, and basically that will park the scope up. And then it'll slow the telescope will then slow into position, slowing in. So that's now in position, in the home position. Alright, that's in the home position, and then it asks you to switch it off. And basically, do not pull. This is what I don't like doing, is don't pull the cigarette lighter from there. Always switch it off from the switch itself, right? And once you switch it off, that is it. Then you can pull the battery lead off. And that's as easy as that. Another useful feature that I notice is if you're looking at an object, say like you're looking at Jupiter, and it appears to be moving quite out of the tracking, you can actually adjust the tracking. But usually the go-to handset automatically detects what object you're looking at, and it corrects its drive. But however, there's times where some drives don't recognise the tracking rate. You can actually adjust it by select setup there, and you go and press the enter key. You scroll down on the arrow keys at the bottom, and you get a setup says tracking. You press that. At the moment it's on reassignal rate, but if I say I wanted to rechange the rate, reassignal rate is basically tracking at star speed of the Earth's rotation. And basically you scroll down there, you get the lunar rate, which is if you're tracking the moon, and if it appears to be moving out, you just select that. Or if it's solar rate. So if I'm looking at Jupiter, you can readjust the rate of speed and all that if the tracking appears to be moved out. And it's basically, you just press enter, and you get the arrow on there, and it will select whatever rate you're at. At the moment, I'm looking at reassignal, so I press reassignal rate, so it selects the speed for reassignal rate. Just a little thing to let people know if you're tracking slightly out. Another useful feature, if you're one of the people who's got dew heaters, and you're wanting to know the temperature, surrounding temperature you are. Now ideally, when you set your dew heaters, you set it on the temperature on your dew controller, usually 10 degrees, within the 10 degrees limit. Now there's another way you can do this, and this handset is really quite handy, is you can actually find out the actual temperature itself, so you don't over exceed it or go below it, where it could, chances that your settings might be wrong on your dew heaters and you either frost over because there isn't enough heat, or it could dew up because there's not. One way to do this is you go to select object and you scroll down till you get utility function. You press enter, then it will show you a variety of stuff. Go to the selection that says show information, press enter, and you can find out the time, their version, but this one is one that I checked, is the temperature. You press that and it gives you the temperature in degrees and in Fahrenheit, and this is usually a useful feature, so you can set your dew heaters according to that and you won't get any frosting up or dewing up because the dew heaters are set wrong. A nice little feature to point out. Also, there's, if you click out escape and press the arrow key again, you get to the power voltage screen, and that also gives you an indication of how many volts and all that you're running. That's another useful indication to give you the state of what the battery is in. Alright, at the moment 11.9 alright, is quite good. The mount will run quite sufficient anyway, around about 11 volts, but if it goes below that, it's a good indication that your battery is getting discharged. Another one is on the utility function. If you press the arrow key again and scroll down, alright, you go to polar scope LED. Usually if you're doing polar alignment and you find out that your polar scope is the backlight LED, which gives the highlight, this is particularly useful, so you can dim it down, and you can just select that so you can dim down the light a bit if it's too bright. Now usually this is not on this is not usually found on the EQ5 because it doesn't have a polar scope LED, but on the NEQ6 mounts they do, so you can actually dim down the polar scope LED if it's a bit too bright, because if it's too bright and it's blocked out Polaris and you can't see it, that's the way to do it. A nice little handy feature there as well. Now here's another one, to say if you want to find an object and you don't want to use the go-to function, or the object you're trying to find isn't actually on the menu itself, there is an alternative. You can actually use this as a go-to push-to dob in a way, but you can use the keys to track the objects, and what you can do is you go to utility function and you highlight show position. Also, when you show position, you press enter and it gives you the coordinates of the declination and the right ascension of the current stages you're at. And believe it or not, you could use the arrow keys to move to find this object. If you've got the coordinates of that object, you can move the go-to through the handset to try and find where exactly in the night sky where this object you're trying to find. A nice little useful feature indeed. But it's really simple to use, the go-to. Alright, and I hope this helps you a bit. Like I said before, doing dry runs or practices like this when the weather's bad, it is good practice, because as you set it up for real, you'll know what to do, how to set it up. But I hope this guide helps, and if you've got any questions, ask us on the Astronomy for Beginners forum. Alright, and thanks for watching, and goodbye.